Good afternoon, and welcome to day one of the NCGIS. Hope everyone's having a good day so far. My name is Jay Young, and I'm an account executive at Rock Technologies. And today we're going to talk about how you can build a solid case for moving your on-premise GIS to a managed GIS environment. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing you might be asking is, why would I listen to Rock? Why would I trust a company that misspells rock with my own GIS? And the answer is because this is our passion. So we've been assisting organizations across numerous verticals for years, helping them migrate their GIS to the cloud. And during that time, we found that of the biggest challenges they face, building a solid and compelling ROI case that they can present throughout their organization to get buy-in, that's been the trickiest part. Because in GIS, they get it, they see the value, but trying to really relay that value to the those who hold the coin purse in the organization can be a little bit tricky. So to help, we've collaborated with several organizations along the way to pull together a process and tool set that you can use to create the GIS managed cloud case at your organization. So today we're going to walk you through this process. And that process starts with why. So why are so many organizations making that move to the cloud? And more importantly, why will your organization benefit from the move? So today we're going to take a look at some of the main driving forces behind this migration as well. Then we're going to walk through the key steps in creating your ROI case, and they're calculating your on-premise costs of supporting an Esri enterprise solution. And that's not just the hardware. And then also looking at quantifying your opportunity costs, any downtime, slow performance. This might be one of the most important pieces of it all. And then we'll walk you through how to identify what will your costs be in a managed cloud. And finally, we'll take a look at the overall comparison between on-premise and a managed cloud costs. So we'll dive through. And at the very end of this, I'm happy to provide this presentation as a PDF. And my contact information will be at the very end of this presentation. So a little bit about us. Who and what is Rock? So at Rock, we take your GIS to the cloud. So we're a team of certified AWS, Azure, and Esri experts, also including being recognized as an Esri Cloud Specialty Partner. And our sole focus is to architect, deploy, and manage the ArcGIS Enterprise Suite and desktop applications in cloud and hybrid environments. And it all starts with understanding your organization's needs and your goals, because every organization's a little bit different. So we really try to focus and learn as much about you and your needs so we can architect and build out a proper environment to fit your needs specifically. A little bit more about what we do. As part of our GIS managed cloud services, we deploy the ArcGIS Enterprise. We virtualize software, we provide infrastructure, and then ongoing support. So one of the most important aspects of partnering with a managed service provider is that support that you get. So here at Rock, we want to make sure that you and your team, once we get you into the cloud, we help you adopt it and we help you learn new things. And it's really all about adopting that tool and making sure that everybody, whether they're current or any future employees, are up to date and trained, and they know how to utilize the system effectively. So we like to think of ourselves as an extension of your office, an extension of your team. So once again, let's start with the why. So there are a lot of different drivers behind this, and I'm sure many of you, you're probably familiar with just about every little bit that's listed here. Security control, modernize your GIS, better collaboration. So I want to talk a little bit about some of these. One of the key reasons is the desire to modernize GIS, and this is something we hear with a lot of people that reach out to us. They want to update. They just want to get up to 2021 because they've been working on systems that are outdated and that, quite frankly, don't work that well. So the Esri enterprise ecosystem with Pro, Geo Event Server, Insights, applications like Workforce, just to name a few, These can really enable your organization to truly elevate the GIS and provide incredible value to users. But at the same time, enterprise can be very complex to manage. And when on-premise can be, it can be pretty complex when you have an on-premise environment. It can be slow to install. Configuring and upgrading can be costly, and it takes a while. So people look to a managed cloud so they can rapidly implement new servers and better technology and better applications. So it can also reduce costs. The cloud enables you to set policies to ensure that you're only being billed for resources that you need. So instead of paying for servers that are unnecessarily running 24/7, in the cloud, you can have virtual machines that are only turned on when you need. So that actually saves money, which is a great thing. Also, the ability to scale. A lot of organizations love that flexibility that it provides. This you can build pretty much a cloud environment can be built to any available or security requirements at your organization. You can have unlimited and all different types of security. Some organizations need the Fort Knox of security, and others don't need it quite that tight. But there's a lot of flexibility with your uptime and security. And then also better collaboration between departments that rely on GIS data. So the cloud provides the ability to integrate data and automate processes, which promotes internal collaboration. We like to talk about integrate, automate, collaborate, and those are really important to many organizations that are planning to continue to collaborate within each department. So these are the main driving points to move to the cloud. So let's go ahead and build out our business case for getting there. So what we're going to walk through today, this is an actual real ROI case that we helped an organization create so that they could get buy-in for the GIS managed cloud. Once again, a lot of the GIS experts and the GIS professionals, they understand the value, but it doesn't always translate to those who hold the power to make those decisions, the executives. So we help them build this case. And we don't want to disclose who the actual organization is because there's sensitive information like salaries and things like that. So we're just going to call them Cloud City. So Cloud City, they had their Esri, they had an on-premise environment. Their software was on-premise. They were on ArcGIS 10.3.1. They didn't have Portal. They're using a file geodatabase, and they had 5 desktop editors. So they realized it is time to modernize. So that's what they want to do. So their target, ideally, what they wanted to do was upgrade to 10.8.1. They wanted a federated portal and an enterprise geodatabase, 5 pro users, and they wanted that ability to scale throughout the coming year to add any applications like Workforce and potentially any third-party applications. And IT and GIS agreed that they did not want to manage all this in-house. IT is very busy. They have a lot on their plate. So is GIS. And they don't necessarily want to have to manage all that, especially with an enterprise system. So we built the case for them. So it began with calculating their on-premise costs. So let's take a look at what their existing infrastructure looked like and the costs associated with that. But there's a little bit more to that. So looking at the hardware that they had to support their existing enterprise, you really need to take a look and consider the size and the amount of servers you have. Our GIS server machines. How many CPUs? How many gigs of RAM? What's the storage? And you have to make sure you inventory that. So if you have multiple servers, document everything about each one of those. Then you have to evaluate the performance of your current environment. So is your environment, is it a very slow, poor running environment? Do you have slow load times? Do you get that little spinny wheel of death that you click on something and it just, that little icon spins and spins and spins, and that you're wasting time. You have unplanned downtime, and time is money. So then you have to identify the server requirements for this new environment that you want to implement. So what they did was they had to identify those specific server requirements for that new modernized software that they envisioned. But you also don't forget to add any upgrades to existing servers should performance lag. With on-premise physical hardware, those they break. And inevitably they're going to need maintenance, and they're going to need upgrades and potentially replacement parts and this and that. So all of that has to be taken in consideration. And all the items, they do add up towards your on-premise hardware costs. So next, so actually looking at their actual hardware, what they had, it looked like this. So they had a Dell PowerEdge rack server. And essentially what they would need to run, this is what they would need to run server, portal, SQL database, data store, and the web server. So that was going to be roughly 18,000. Now they also wanted to ensure redundancy. So basically they needed a second one exactly like it to ensure that redundancy. So that's another $18,000 that they had to invest in an additional server. So looking at their VMware, they're looking at a hypervisor for virtual servers. That was $1,500 a year. And then to run Pro, they wanted to begin utilizing Pro, which is great. Pro's kind of the future of ArcGIS, so they wanted to go ahead and begin using that. So in order to utilize Pro, they needed to purchase a very beefy Dell workstation with 8-core CPUs and 32 gigs of RAM. So it's pretty massive. It's a pretty penny. So that was $3,452 per workstation. So looking at what their annual cost was going to be for that envisioned modern environment, it was going to be $54,672, and that's just for the infrastructure. Keep that in mind. So next, we've got the hardware, so we have the hardware costs. What we want to look at now is maybe one of the most important aspects is the people resources, because to make any of this work and to actually make it happen, you have to utilize your staff and your people. So managing Esri's enterprise, it takes, especially now, it takes a lot of work from multiple resources to manage properly. This is not the same enterprise from years ago. What they have available now is it can be a beast in a good way, but being a beast, it's going to take a few people to manage it. So let's take a look at what the rules for IT and GIS were going to be for Cloud City. So they realized that IT, if they were going to invest in this on-premise, IT was going to be tasked with numerous duties, including purchasing, installing, configuring those servers, maintaining, troubleshooting. If they had performance issues, they were up to bat. That was their responsibility. Then they also had to install and configure those upgrades, any patches, any of the new services that were coming along, and also security updates. And this is all on top of, in addition to what they're currently doing outside of GIS. I mean, this is just GIS, and they service all the other departments, and hopefully more software standard solutions used throughout their organization. They had to maintain everything. So this was a lot to add onto their plate. Now for the GIS, their jobs morphed more into a full-time maintenance worker. They were managing that enterprise, configuring, managing that portal. They were becoming database administrators and web server admins. So this alone was a lot of work. And every hour spent in that maintenance universe is an hour that they are not innovating with GIS, because when you work in the GIS department, you're supposed to be doing cool, fun GIS stuff, not necessarily maintaining and managing those systems, because that eats up a lot of time. So looking at how are they going to calculate that on-premise cost with the personnel, they had to consider, all right, time is money. So if we're going to be utilizing our IT, their time, we have to quantify that. So what they did was they estimated that one full-time IT admin was spending roughly a third of their year supporting GIS, which is accurate. So for the GIS administrator, nearly all of their time was spent on the maintenance and not the innovation. So the cost they calculated was roughly $33,000 for the IT, and then $85,000 for GIS, just to be able to run that on-premise cost. So for the year, if you add up the personnel time as well as the infrastructure, they were looking at a roughly $172,000 the first year. That's a hefty investment. That is nothing to sneeze at. So now that we've got step one, it's time to evaluate your opportunity costs. So what do we mean by opportunity costs? This one is a little bit trickier because this isn't something everybody considers. But at the same time, it's potentially the most important cost facing your organization. So the first point here is, what is the cost, time, and resource of your GIS going down, or a security breach? The impacts here are more financial and therefore can be hard to quantify, but consider the impact of this. North Carolina and South Carolina, we are in Hurricane Alley, right? And hurricane comes and knocks out power to the grid. Your evacuation map going down in the middle of an emergency like that, it can do a real number on traffic to sites that are hosting that evac route. So think of out west, they have earthquakes, they have fires. Think of the fire seasons out west. Out working evac routes, showing people where to go, the outcome can be disastrous. So then there's also that threat of the security breach on top of that. And we've seen this, you see this more and more every year all over the news, that there are certain cities, their data has been held ransom, and bringing them to a screeching halt until they get this figured out. Having their systems on premise actually makes them more vulnerable to security breaches. So once again, quantifying these events is hard, but outlining the risks to build your case for the cloud is essential. So make sure you understand, depending on where you are geographically, there's some real issues. If you're in Tornado Alley, you have tornadoes you have to worry about every year. Hurricanes, the list goes on and on. So those are real things to think about. Next is stagnant technology. And what do we mean by that? So this really comes down to, what is the cost of staying in an outdated environment? What is the cost of staying with outdated tech? What does it cost your organization not to be able to take advantage of the best tools that are available out there? If you're utilizing Esri's Enterprise, you can deploy and manage your workforce way more efficiently. You can track resources in real time. You can provide quality service to your external and internal users. All these pieces have a cost to them. So it may be harder to quantify, but it's incredibly relevant because it's what we do every day. And if you don't adopt and adapt to these changes in technology, you really are at risk of going away. One of my bosses, my first boss, he's an old Vietnam vet, and he used to tell us, if you don't do better, you go away. And that's true. And I think that's true with technology. And if you don't adopt and adapt to technology's changes, you are at risk of going extinct. So you have to keep up with that. So and there's also the opportunity for better performance and increased productivity. So moving to the cloud, it really can enable real-time collaboration, and it gives you an environment that supports your Esri software so it runs like a dream. And these costs really are quantifiable. These are just things that we don't typically think about. So here's how Cloud City did it. They estimated the value of providing 5 employees access to real-time data. So they took the average salary of these 5 employees and they broke down their hourly rate, they multiplied, divide, they conducted some math, witchcraft, and what they came up with was an annual cost of roughly $31,200 every year to be able to collaborate in real time. So that was the hard dollar value of collaborating in real time. And they did the same process to quantify how improving performances for these 5 employees over the year would cost, or actually save. And it would save them roughly $9,000 a year if they had better performance. So really take a minute to think about and quantify the number of hours you would save if you had a system that performed great. If everyone is working with the most up-to-date and the best tools available in real time. If you could take advantage of the latest tools to get your jobs done across your organization. And we have literally seen in some organizations, this number has reached well over $300,000 because the inefficiencies and performance issues of their existing systems, it just created not only a lot of issues internally, but financially, it was a disaster. So we've completed the first 2 steps, which would provide you a really strong estimate of your on-premise costs. So those are really great things to think about. Now let's take a quick peek at costing out your managed cloud. So what would it be if you decided to do this in the cloud? Have a vendor like Rock do this for you. So here are some of the things that you're going to need to know. And it's really not too different, to be honest, from looking at trying to identify the cost from the on-premise to a managed cloud. What you're going to need to know is the infrastructure required for your software, number of users and editors. Are they using ArcGIS Pro? Are they using desktop? How many pro users versus people that just go in and make little edits and changes here and there? Number of map services and the size of your database. Are you looking to take everything to the cloud? Is your data horrible and maybe you don't want to migrate everything? Maybe you want to start fresh. Just things to think about. What are your security policies? They're going to be unique to your organization, so you need to know what type of security you're going to need to implement in the cloud, and then backup and retention policies. So what are you going to need? What you need access to is somebody that can accurately architect and price the cloud environment for your organization. So that's exactly what Rock does. We schedule assessment calls with anybody that's interested, and we have them fill out assessment document. We have meetings. We really try to understand all of this so that we can do this for you, so we can architect all that out for you. So then we're going to calculate your ROI. So looking at Cloud City's managed cloud pricing, and this is all inclusive. So including all of their virtual hardware, those virtual machines for a base enterprise deployment, their monthly services that they receive from Rock, from us managing and maintaining that environment, also providing assistance, support, and training for them, as well as 5 GPU-enabled virtual workstations. Their annual cost was $52,200, which is $4,350 a month. Now, there is a one-time setup fee to get them into the cloud, and this varies. Once again, the numbers that we're providing here are unique to Cloud City. This is going to vary on every organization, but the setup fee to architect and so on and configure that enterprise in the cloud was going to be $19,500. So looking at the cost to go to the cloud, year 1, including that setup fee, is going to be $71,700. Cost of year 2 goes down to $52,000 because at that point you don't have to pay for that setup; it's already there. Year 3, you're still looking at $52,200. Year 4, the same. Really, no changes unless you make any major changes to your environment. You add new machines or beefier machines or whatever it might be. That'll change a little bit, but the cost should relatively stay the same. So let's compare the on-premise versus the cloud. So Once again, if we take a look at the hardware, the personnel, and the opportunity costs, they were looking at over $200,000 for an on-premise environment. Looking at compared to the cost to go to the cloud, a managed cloud was $71,700. So they would be saving $141,532 if they decided to go to a managed cloud provider. It's huge savings. And this once again just shows you, over the course of year 1, 2, and 3, what that looks like. And here's some things to consider with on-premise versus a cloud as well. So with on-premise, they also have to consider they know they're going to need some software and a hardware replacement, updates, repairs. It's going to happen with those physical machines. And also, if you've purchased a new server in 2020, what happens in 2023? Have you been stagnant for 2 years because you haven't really been able to invest in better servers to meet your needs? How many hours of your day, your week, your year are being spent being reactive towards your on-premise issues and not proactive towards your organization's goals? That's also something to think about. You want to start being proactive and not reactive to any of these issues. There we go. So as you can see, once again, the savings over 3 years, the numbers speak for themselves. So there really is a lot of true savings and true value to a managed cloud environment once you break down, granular like Cloud City had to. So now it's time for you to build your case. So what we've done here, we want to provide you the tools to do the same thing. So I'm happy to provide you this PDF, this presentation as a PDF, and you can fill this out for your own organization. If this is something you're thinking about doing, take the time to think about each of these, your hardware investment, the personnel, the unlocked potential and productivity. And then if you'd like, Rock, what we do is we can help you identify what that cost would be in the cloud, what it's going to cost to manage it for you in the cloud. So you can have a real apples to apples comparison. So once again, feel free. We're happy to provide you this tool to help you guys make your case to any of the executives or finance or whoever, any leadership that really wants to understand the value. Because at the end of the day, ROI speaks volume to the leadership. So if we can prove it, this is a very valuable tool. And a few additional resources here at the very end. But once again, Rock, we want to help take your GIS to the cloud, so we're happy to assist. If you have any questions, reach out. My name is Jay Young, and my email is jyoung@rocktech.net. And once again, you can visit our vendor page, and there's more details on there. But we're happy to help, and hopefully you learned a little something today. And we look forward to having a great week and speaking to some of you here shortly.